You're listening to Health Professional Radio. My name is Wayne Buckler, and my guest this morning is Nazim Nassar. Nazim's an interesting managing director who has some stories to tell us. Nazim, welcome to Health Professional Radio.
Good morning, Wayne.
Now, first of all, Nazim, tell us about your firm. This is AIMS, A-I-M-S Medical Group, and what is it that you do?
Okay. Let's start with AIMS as AIMS, which stands for Australian International Medical Supplies. And the reason behind the name, when we started this company 6 years ago, the main purpose was to export medical products from the Australian market to the Gulf region in the Middle East and to some European countries, including North Africa as well. And that's the reason, again, behind the name. We started this company as a supplier of medical products, approved TGA from the Australian market. The reason is because worldwide it's well known now that TGA is one of the high standards when it comes to medical and pharmaceutical products. So we found there's a big interest for that, so that's what we've done.
Now, the TGA is the government body that approves therapeutic goods in Australia, and you're saying that they're highly regarded compared with similar bodies in other countries?
Yeah, that's right. TGA means Therapeutic Drug Administration, and this is authority or the body behind approval medical and pharmaceutical products to be used in the Australian market. Now, that's equivalent to what we call it the FDA, or the Food Drug Administration, which is the American and the European one from Sweden. We know that, and it's worldwide known that even if there is medical or pharmaceutical products approved under the FDA, still when it comes to Australia, it has to go through what we call it clinical trials, which includes 3 different phases to get approved to be used in the Australian market. That's one of the reasons we have sometimes delays of getting new products from European or the American market to get it into the Australian end users.
Now, Nazim, your path to being managing director of the AIMS Medical Group is not simple and straightforward either. Tell us a little bit about your history.
Well, I'm originally actually from Nazareth, from Israel. And I've done first degree at the Hebrew University, and that's to do with biological sciences, majoring in physiology. After first degree, and that was during the first 4 years between 1985 and 1989. After that, I moved to Haifa, to the Technion, which is equivalent to RMIT in Melbourne here. So I moved to the Faculty of Medicine there, and I did my second degree in medical sciences, majoring in pharmacology. My research was to do with contractility of the myocardium or heart muscles affected by liver disease. We're talking about here jaundice and cirrhosis. And after 3 years, after I finished that research and granted me my master's degree in pharmacology, moved to Tel Aviv, did work in a pharmaceutical company called Lapidot, which was associated with Lundbeck from Denmark. And I did work on antipsychotics and some gynecological products. For that period of time, it was around 3 years, gained a lot of experience to do with marketing and sales of pharmaceutical products, which gave me a new direction in my life. And I was thinking one day probably I'll be involved in it. But I still, to some degree, involved in the academic field, and I was enjoying it, actually. During my master's, my supervisor, originally, actually, he's an Australian guy from Sydney, migrated to Israel 10 years before that. That's the way I get to know a little bit about Australia, and started to get interested more when I did work on the gynecological products, mainly when we worked on IVF in Tel Aviv. And at that time, till today probably, Monash Medical Center and fertility control clinics in Melbourne considered one of the leading researchers and clinics worldwide. So I was involved to some degree during that time and got interested in the Australian market and research and start exploring that area. So after 3 years, I did apply as a qualified migrant to come to Australia based on some part of my work during my studies as a medical laboratory technician in Rambam Medical Center in Haifa. It took me a bit of time. This wasn't an easy process. It's very strict. There's a lot of strict policies, or were strict policies until today. But I was lucky at the end. After 3 years, my application got approved and migrated to Australia based on that kind of visa as qualified migrant to do some work here. After I arrived to Melbourne, 3 months later, I was exploring, also continuing research at Melbourne University. So I met Professor Angus, I remember at that time, at Department of Pharmacology at Melbourne University. Started my PhD. Then financial difficulties forced me to go and explore different avenues. As I said, migrated here with my wife from Nazareth as well, little daughter, 1 year old. And at that time, my English was extremely limited as a third language for me. I couldn't be a tutor or a person who can, work at university in teaching. So I had to go and find part-time jobs so I can support my family. But then I was thinking, I thought, I don't want to continue all my life like that. So I did go to Monash University.
You're listening to Health Professional Radio with Wayne Buckler. Today I'm having a chat with Nazim Nassar from AIMS Medical Group, and Nazim's been telling us about his work in Melbourne University, Monash University, and how he came to be the managing director of the current venture. Go on, Nazim.
Yeah, so I was talking about involvement in research at Melbourne University. Then I was thinking at that time, medical research not getting the right support financially from government and other organizations or bodies. So thinking more rationally, let's put it that way, about future family, settling in Australia. So I started exploring other fields to go and find, so that might help me to find a job later on. And then I applied to Monash University to do the pharmacy course. I was lucky at that time to get accepted there. It's a tough course to get into it because of the limited number of students that were accepted to that at that time. And that was in 1995. 3 months I arrived to Melbourne. I did the course, and then I was training at Boston Hospital. Finished my traineeship over there. Then I moved to community pharmacy. I did work started working community pharmacy in 2000 till 2009. All that time I was thinking that one day I want to get involved in business to do with the health field. Problem was, of course, first thing, resources. We're talking about how money and how are you going to do it exactly, because as we know, the Australian, first of all, Australia is a small country. There's a lot of local players here. It was a lot of support, financial support to start business like that. You're going to be competing with giants. It's very hard to get accepted by suppliers and manufacturers to get their products into the market. So that's what gave me that idea. Let's start doing something not many people doing it, and that's to take the Australian product overseas. And I've chosen one of the hardest markets to deal with. Reason is different way of operation over there, and we're talking about the Gulf area or the Middle East, different languages, instability after Gulf War, lots of challenges. And Australian companies and in general Western companies, they find it's very difficult to go there. The reason is because they don't want to get involved in that. They're happy, they're in their comfort zone. So my mission at that time was to find somebody who can help me doing it there. And during my work in pharmacy, I met many people there. One day, I remember one Sunday, a guy came in and his accent was clearly an accent of somebody who came from that part of the world. And I started talking to him and I discovered that he did work over 20 years in the medical field in Saudi Arabia. I had a chat with him. I asked him if I can meet him again. So I met him a couple of times after that. Then I connected him and myself with another guy who is working in the Australian market as a medical representative for one pharmaceutical company. And my mission started from there when I arranged a kind of deal that I will continue to work as a pharmacist to support this business. And the guy who came from the Middle East started contacting the market leaders in that part of the world, and a friend who I met in the Australian market to help me to conduct a daily business, as in emailing, phone calls while I'm, and I set up my home as a little office for that.
Yes.
And that started in 2009, and that's the beginning of the story. 3 months later, I arranged a trip with the guys to Saudi after we managed to convince one of the leading companies in Australia, it's called Multigate Devices, to take their products to the Middle East, and that's what we did. And we managed to evaluate their products, and we managed to have some deals happening. A year later, we thought, okay, so that's a good start, but how about our market here? We in Australia, we live in Australia, we are Australians now, and we've got a few ideas we can implement it as well here in this market. So, due to my connections with aged care at that time, as a pharmacist, we used to do some work with them. I did make a few contacts, and I managed to start getting the products that we take overseas to distribute it for aged care market in Victoria. A year later, due to my background as a pharmacist or pharmacologist and interested in the pharmaceutical products, we applied to have AIMS registered as a pharmaceutical company through the Department of Health, and it was successful, and that was a starting point to start distributing vaccines and pharmaceutical products to GP market and their surgeries. Today, we are a leading supplier of medical and pharmaceutical products to aged care, hospital at home, GP market and day surgeries. And day surgeries specifically, we're talking about endoscopy centers and gastroscopy centers.
Now, Nazim, it's been a long journey to this point. I understand you also do a lot of work with medical practitioners in your part of the world who are not from an English-speaking background.
That's right. As I said, always it's a challenge. It's a big challenge to get into this field because of the competition, because the size of the already existed distributors, because a lot of reasons. So always you've got to find a way how you can, to penetrate the market. And you have to have certain uniquenesses in your services. So as a health professional, I came across few different challenges that in some parts of Melbourne, we know Melbourne is a very multicultural place, and we know there's a lot of migrants. And I did work and I lived in the northern part of Melbourne, which is one of the heaviest geographically one of the places where all migrants from, especially after the Gulf War, from Iraq, from Syria, from Egypt, generally from the Middle East and Turkey, they're coming to settle in. These guys, They don't speak English well. They don't. The socioeconomic situation for them not the best. They need a lot of help.
Mm-hmm.
They need a lot of support. They are a bit intimidated when they deal with the Australian system. So we found that we can help them in this field. And some of them, the health professionals, they just started working. They hard for them to deal with Western systems in general. They have totally different approach to these services overseas where they came from. So, and at AIMS, one of the things I did work on, and we managed to do it, to have it as a multicultural company. We have employees who are from Anglo-Saxon background. We have employees who from Asian background. We have employees who from Arabic background that they can speak the Arabic language. And we worked on that on purpose because we thought that might help us to get into different markets in terms of ethnic background. And we did manage to do that.
Nazim, it's a fascinating tale. It does sound to me like the service that you offer on two levels. Firstly, exporting Australian products to the rest of the world, I think, is a story that needs to be told, but also the support that you're providing locally in Melbourne to your customers in the health profession who are not from an English-speaking background, I think is incredibly important. Now, for people who want to get in touch with you, Nazim, I guess your 1300 number is the best way, 1300 731 530?
Yes, that's right.
Now, if you've just joined us on Health Professional Radio this morning, we've just spent 20-odd minutes talking with Nazim Nassar from AIMS Medical Group about the development of the company and their exports, particularly into the Middle East, and their registration and services as a pharmaceutical company, both around Australia and into the areas in North Melbourne where there are large populations of non-English speaking background professionals. Nazim, it's been a pleasure to talk to you this morning. We'll put a transcript of this story up on our website and an audio file. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. This is Wayne Buckler.